Friday night in Indianapolis, Caitlyn Clark delivered the kind of performance that instantly changes the conversation. She exploded for a career-high 45 points and added 10 assists against the Seattle Storm. That combination made WNBA history, as Clark became the first player ever to finish a game with at least 40 points and 10 assists. And somehow, she did all of that in only 29 minutes. That detail makes the performance even more remarkable because Clark has still been playing under a strict minutes restriction while dealing with a back injury. The Fever were clearly trying to manage her workload, but Clark made every minute count. She came out aggressive, attacked the basket, knocked down shots from deep, and constantly created opportunities for her teammates. By the end of the night, she had produced a performance that fans will be talking about for a long time. But now, there's a much bigger question. After playing only 29 minutes and putting together the biggest statistical performance of her career, should Indiana really ask her to play again the very next night?
Hunting for people to get dimes to.
Now comes the decision that has Fever fans divided. Less than 24 hours after Caitlyn Clark's historic performance, Indiana was preparing to put her back on the court against a much tougher. Comment why below. Because this isn't just about the bigger picture. Clark has already been dealing with a back issue, and the Fever are trying to much more complicated.
Okay, these are absolutely my favorite videos to make because Caitlyn Clark, record breaker, puts down 45 points, 10 assists, steals and blocks and all. Clark was on a minutes restriction, and for being under 30 minutes, putting 45 points down, 10 assists. Actually, I know she got 6 stocks, but let's just see what exactly they were. She got 4 steals and 2 blocks, and I gotta tell you, she came in clutch.
Book. Then, almost immediately, she's being asked to come back and compete again. What happens next could reveal a lot about how Indiana is managing its franchise player. Let's go back to the beginning. Clark had been dealing with a back issue for several weeks. Whenever she returned to action, the Fever carefully limited her minutes because nobody wanted a manageable injury to become something much more serious. So when she entered Friday night's game against Seattle, the expectation was pretty simple. Pulling up from long range, attacking the basket, creating shots for teammates, and controlling the game from multiple areas of the floor. The result was one of the most productive performances of her career. The remarkable part wasn't just the scoring. Clark was doing everything while still operating under a limited workload.
Oh my God. Guys, the Fever playing right now. There's like 38 seconds left in the game. I don't want to see no more. I want to be surprised. But what I'm here to tell you guys right now, Caitlyn Clark, best career performance today. 41 damn points. My goodness.
By the final buzzer, Caitlyn Clark had put together numbers that were almost impossible to believe. She finished 11-4, 18 from the field, and knocked down 6 three-pointers. She also recorded 2 rebounds for steals and 2 blocks. At the free throw line, she went 17-4-19. But 2 numbers stood above everything else: 45 points and 10 assists. That combination had never happened before in WNBA history. No player had previously recorded a 40-point game while also reaching double figures in assists. Clark did it for the first time ever, and she accomplished it in just 29 minutes. That's what makes this performance so extraordinary. She wasn't playing a full 40-minute game. She wasn't even close to that workload. Yet she still managed to produce a statistical line that changed the league's record book. For Clark, it was a career night. For the WNBA, it was a historic night. And for Indiana, it raised a completely different question. How much can the Fever continue to rely on a player who is still being carefully managed because of an injury?
On defensive fouls from here, a real opportunity for Indiana. Clark with 15 points here on the night. Oh, she's feeling it!
Put the numbers into perspective. A full WNBA game lasts 40 minutes. Caitlyn Clark played only 29, yet she still produced a record-breaking performance that had never been seen in the league since its beginning. That's when a story became bigger than one impressive box score. Indiana needed Clark's production just to survive the game. The Fever faced Seattle and still had to battle all the way to the final minutes before winning 110-107. Clark's 6 three-pointer helped give Indiana the advantage it needed late in the game. Without that kind of performance, the result could have been completely different. And that's exactly why this word. Now, the Fever have to figure out how to manage that reality without putting too much pressure on her body.
Back to the Indiana Fever, back to Caitlyn freaking Clark, because she was on a minutes restriction. And I'm telling you, like, I don't know how she did it. The Indiana Fever, at one point, they were up by 17 points. And then because she's on a minutes restriction, she got yanked. She was on she was on fire. She had to get yanked. Didn't love that. I don't know what goes on with like minutes restrictions, partitioning of time, but kind of hated that because the Indiana Fever started losing that lead. The game was actually taken over by the Seattle Storm at one point. They were ahead. Caitlyn did come back in. She got things going. She was making 3 after 3 after 3. She was tossing dimes to her teammates.
And Clark wasn't finished making history. According to ESPN, during that same game against Seattle, she also became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 200 career three-pointers. So in one night, Clark added another major milestone to her resume. The impressive part is the timing. She wasn't playing with a completely unrestricted workload. She was still coming back from a back issue and working within a minute's limit. Yet she continued to produce at a level that very few players in the league can match. The 45 points and 10 assists created the headline, but the 3-point milestone added another layer to an already historic night. For Indiana, however, the celebrations didn't last long. The biggest question was already waiting for them. What would they do with Clark less than 24 hours later?
Making this clutch 3 just to edge them ever so slightly over the Seattle Storm. That created so much momentum. Everyone in Gamebridge was up on their feet. Then they play the foul game. It was exciting. It was, even though the frustration I had from Indiana losing a 17-point lead, it was bad. It was pretty bad. But I still had so much fun in the minutes that Caitlyn was out because she makes the game different. She makes the game kind of move in a different way and flow in a different way. She takes a lot of chances that are really fun to see. And those types of things are what the fans have really been lacking.
2 major milestones in one night, and all of it while Caitlyn Clark was still recovering. So what did Indiana decide to do? Instead of shutting her down completely, the plan was for Clark to suit up again against the New York Liberty. That meant another game on a back-to-back schedule, shortly after the biggest scoring performance of her career. And that's where the fan debate really started. One side looked at Clark's performance and said, because a player has one great shooting night. The Liberty also represented a much tougher challenge than Seattle. So the question wasn't whether Clark could dominate. She had already proven that she could. The question was whether Indiana should ask her body to do it again so soon. Nobody could know the answer immediately. But one thing was already obvious. Even while limited, Clark remained one of the most dangerous players on the court. Her historic performance had silenced plenty of doubters, but it also created a new challenge for the Fever. The better she plays, the more difficult it becomes to keep her on the sideline.
Oh, we didn't even mention Caitlyn Clark made history too. Caitlyn Clark made history today. Caitlyn Clark has made history today, guys. Guys, watch this 3 right here. This just happened moments ago. This is why I immediately came to.
Johnson pokes it away.
Look, what is we saying?
Then came another night, and this time the story was completely different. Caitlyn Clark wasn't celebrating a record-breaking performance. She was furious. During the game, Clark confronted an official and showed just how frustrated she was with the way the game was being called. She marched toward the referee, argued intensely, and reportedly used strong language while making her feelings very clear. And somehow, she avoided receiving a technical foul. It was a completely different version of Clark from the player fans had watched dominate the previous game. This time, frustration was taking center stage. The bigger issue wasn't just one argument with an official. Clark was already coming back from a back injury, playing under restrictions, and trying to find a rhythm. Then the calls weren't going the way she expected. By the end of the night, the frustration had become impossible to hide. Caitlyn Clark had one of the roughest performances of her season, and she made it very clear that she wasn't happy about what happened on the court.
I've got to be honest. The officials allowed her the moment to get the emotions out of her, and some officials wouldn't do that, especially with
overall, and only won 4-8 from three-point range. But the shooting numbers weren't the biggest story. During the game, Clark took a hard hit that left her limping. The whistle never came, and that was the moment her frustration boiled over. Clark couldn't understand why the contact wasn't called. She had already been dealing with an injury, and now she felt she had been hit hard without getting the protection she expected from the officials. The frustration continued to build, and eventually, Clark confronted the referee. That moment became one of the biggest talking points from the entire game. Because for the first time in a while, the story wasn't about Caitlyn Clark's shooting, assists, or highlights. It was about her frustration with the officiating.
Valkyries demolishing the Fever tonight. By the way, very early on in the offseason, when free agency started and it became clear the Indiana Fever wasn't really going to do much. And then we had the draft. You had all of us in the creator community screaming, this is not a championship squad. They don't have the appropriate size. They don't have the appropriate length. They haven't addressed a lot of issues. Guys, this team is officially 14-10.
The timing couldn't have been worse. Clark was returning from a back injury, and reports had her playing under a minute's restriction of roughly 25 minutes. Waiting on the other side was the Golden State Valkyries, a team that had been playing extremely well and had won 7 straight games. So this wasn't an easy comeback. The first quarter was rough for Clark. She looked rusty, which wasn't surprising considering the time she had missed. But then the second quarter changed everything. Clark attacked the basket and drove hard toward the rim. Kia Stokes met her at the basket, and the two players made contact. Clark went down. The basket counted, but there was no foul call. Clark was visibly upset. Afterward, she explained that she believed she had been hit in the leg and said the contact continued to bother her for the rest of the game. That moment became the turning point of the night. Instead of simply being a difficult comeback game, it became a night filled with frustration, physical contact, and questions about the officiating.
The fallout last night, the knee to the quad heard round the world, the crash out experienced around the world. We got video of the other part of a situation where Caitlyn Clark came off the court and she was pissed off that she was being pulled out of the game. And very interesting.
That's when the situation became much more heated. Instead of quietly walking away, Clark went directly toward the official. She didn't approach calmly. She moved quickly toward the referee and began arguing about the contact and the way the game was being officiated. Multiple reports said Clark used strong language while expressing her frustration. Her main complaint was that she felt Indiana wasn't receiving the same treatment from the officials that Golden State was getting. It was a very visible moment. Fans inside the arena could see exactly how frustrated Clark had become. And despite the intensity of the exchange, the referee did not give her a technical foul. That decision added another layer to the controversy. Was the official trying to let the moment pass? Or should Clark have been penalized for confronting the referee that aggressively? Either way, the confrontation quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the game.
With Stokes that made you upset and then you hopped into the back.
God, that hurts. Like, the ref can't miss that. And then I have to play with a contusion in my leg the rest of the game. Like, it's ridiculous. Can't miss calls like that.
The argument continued when the referee reportedly told Clark that she had initiated the contact. Clark immediately pushed back. Her response was essentially that even if she initiated some of the contact, that didn't mean an opponent could make dangerous contact with her leg. She was clearly frustrated and wanted the official to understand what she believed had happened. The exchange showed just how emotional the game had become for Clark. This wasn't simply about missing one call. She was returning from an injury, playing with a limited workload, and dealing with physical contact throughout the game. By this point, the frustration had boiled over, and somehow, Clark still avoided a technical foul. The arena had witnessed a superstar openly challenging an official, and the moment immediately became part of the larger conversation surrounding Clark, officiating, and how physical games involving her are being handled.
It was on and popping in this game.
Even make a move to try to keep her knocked.
Caitlyn thrashed out on the refs. Right here. Right here. She lost it. And you could tell at one point in the game, later after this, she got pulled out of the game, and I think she slammed the table on the way out of the game. But this is another look at this, real close.
Got to be honest, the officials allowed.
She said, F, I've been fouled 5 effing times. Give me a effing call.
You might think the confrontation with the referee was the emotional high point. It wasn't. After that moment, Clark's shooting completely fell apart. She finished the game just 4 for 14 from the field and 1 for 8 from three-point range. Those numbers represented a season low. She also committed 5 turnovers, which was the most on the Fever that night. And there was another unusual statistic. For the first time all season, Clark finished with a negative plus-minus. So this wasn't simply a frustrating shooting night. Almost everything seemed to go wrong at once. She was returning from injury, struggling to find her rhythm, dealing with physical contact, frustrated with the officiating, and unable to produce her usual offensive numbers. The result was one of the toughest games of her season, and Indiana still had to deal with a bigger problem. The team needed to find a way forward while its star player was clearly not operating at 100%.
Did they give you an explanation right after when you...
She said I initiated the contact, which is fine. You can't knee me in the leg, knock me over.
The Fever eventually lost the game 88-75, while Golden State extended its winning streak to 8 games. Gabby Williams finished with 16 points, while Caitlyn Shun added 14 off the bench. Chose not to address the media, and that silence was significant. The night had brought tear on the court, but they also need her healthy. That's the difficult balance Indiana is facing. Clark's talent isn't the question. Her ability to change games isn't the question either. The real question is how the Fever manage her health, workload, and frustration while continuing their playoff push. One difficult game doesn't define a season. But when an injured superstar has a rough night, confronts officials, struggles offensively, and then chooses not to speak afterward, it's certainly a situation worth watching. So now the question goes to the fans. Was Clark simply having one frustrating night, or is this a sign that Indiana needs to rethink how it is managing its star player?
Caitlyn Clark is not happy. Caitlyn Clark absolutely slammed Stephanie White for continuing to sub her out. She's sick and tired of Stephanie White's sabotage. She's sick and tired of this BS minutes restriction, which I believe is a stats limit. They are trying to limit what she can do in the statistical category. Caitlyn Clark absolutely let Stephanie White have it, along with the referees, man. She is sick and tired of this nonsense. And it's just starting to blow over, man. It's too much now.
They're probably the best defensive team in the league. They're really good at that. They do what they do. And I had some good looks that didn't go down. And then, I shot some tougher looks too. But, I thought I